Did you know that not eating enough protein actually makes you gain weight? Not only that, it can also lead to muscle loss and nutrient deficiencies. And following the traditional weight loss standards could be the reason that you're not seeing any change, even though you're doing everything right. This can leave you frustrated and exhausted with zero results, even though you follow all of the rules. I used to follow those rules too, but back then I was 100 pounds heavier with no signs of reaching my goal. It wasn't until I quit making 4 huge protein mistakes that I started losing weight and finally quit struggling to keep it off. So in this video, I'll show you what those mistakes are, the simple tricks you can use to stop sabotaging your weight loss, and I'll even share my secret bonus tip that creates a fat loss snowball effect that makes you unstoppable on your weight loss journey. But that bonus tip won't work until you fully understand how these mistakes are ruining your fat loss. So let's get into mistake number 1. Let's say you're scrolling on Facebook and come across an ad for the perfect workout top. So you click through and select your size. Even though there's a chart that you really should analyze first, you're not exactly sure of your measurements. Plus, the chart looks confusing, so you just grab a large. But when you try it on, it doesn't fit you quite the same way it fits the model. You're not sure how that happened since everything else in your closet is a large, but somehow this large looks like it was made for a 5-year-old. That's exactly what happens when you follow recommended protein guidelines. Even though the recommended 46 grams of protein per day seems to work just fine for everyone else, I mean, it really doesn't, but let's just pretend for a moment that it does. When you eat that little protein, you never make any progress on your diet. That's because eating too little protein leads to muscle loss and excess hunger. And this combo is enough to make you gain weight, even if you think you're doing everything right. Soon enough, all your clothes look like they were meant for a 5-year-old because losing all of that muscle drops your metabolism, making weight regain inevitable, which means your clothes no longer fit because eating only the recommended 0.8 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight is really only enough protein to survive. Not to mention how confusing that can be, because a lot of women think that means they should measure 0.8 grams per kilogram of protein on a food scale. But let's say you do the math and you're supposed to weigh out 150 grams of chicken. That only adds up to 47 grams of nutritional protein, which puts you right back into those general recommendations that aren't helping anyone reach their goals. So when we talk about grams of protein, I'm referring to the nutritional grams of protein listed on the label, not how many grams your protein weighs on a food scale. But even if you already know to use the grams listed on the label, if you want to thrive with a fat loss plan that actually works, it's important to eat even more protein than is recommended by most weight loss plans. And more protein is so important because it keeps you fuller longer, helps you maintain more lean muscle while slimming down, and more protein gives you the building blocks you need to thrive instead of barely survive. But before you can figure out your protein goal, first we have to change your goal from less of a complicated math equation to an easy to calculate number. Because in Arizona, the only thing we measure in kilograms is, well, you know. And that topic is a little out of my niche. The easiest way to figure out how much protein you should aim for is to estimate your protein needs based on your goal weight. If your ultimate goal is to weigh 150 pounds, then you should aim for 150 grams of protein per day, which sounds like a lot and can be overwhelming if you're also making the second huge protein mistake. And making this mistake is worse than eating 3 of these high fiber bars as a meal replacement. Sure, it seems like a good idea at the time because look, that's a delicious way to get 30 grams of protein. But these bars also pack in 30 grams of fiber, which sounds great since fiber helps keep you full, but anyone who's actually had 30 grams of fiber in one sitting, they understand the intense pain that comes with overdoing fiber. And since I don't want you keeling over just to drop a few, it's important you don't make this mistake. Let's go back to our online shopping example. Let's say you found these cute gym tops and it turns out they're on sale. Plus, there's a bunch of colors to choose from. Sure, your husband might not see it as the same bargain that you do, but who cares? Because pink happens to be your color, and so does purple. Plus, you gotta have it in black, and they have navy. So you order this amazing top in every color you love. But after trying on the most flattering color first, you decide it's not so flattering after all. But when you find out the store has a no return policy, it's safe to say your husband won't be happy that you spent hundreds of dollars on bargains that you'll never wear and that you also can't return. Instead of being stuck with just one top that you can't do anything with, you got overexcited and ordered all of these clothes that'll just go to waste. And the same thing holds true when it comes to protein. Because even though we just talked about how you should aim to hit your goal weight in protein most days, if you get excited and try to force too much too soon, then you could end up with heartburn, bloating, or even painful constipation. And who wants to eat all of that protein you just stocked up on when you're dealing with that? Because anytime you go from eating traditional protein recommendations to a diet that's made up of 30 to 40% of your calories from protein, chances are you don't have sufficient stomach acid to digest all of this new protein. And if you can't digest what you eat, you are gonna feel like crap. Which means, how long are you actually gonna stick to this high protein diet? But working up to that number at a slower pace can help your stomach acid kick back into production so you don't have these side effects while ramping up more whole food protein. And if you are ramping up slowly but you're still dealing with any of these symptoms, using the right digestive supplements can be a lifesaver. I'll add that link to the description in case you need to learn more about getting your digestion right for a high protein diet. But let's say that your digestion is great and you have zero problems eating more protein. What happens when you make it to the end of the day only to realize that breakfast and lunch only added up to 50 grams? That's not the time to freak out, hit up all of the support groups about how to get 100 grams in one meal, and then label yourself a failure because you didn't reach your goal. Instead of allowing your inner voice to take over, wondering, why can I ever get this right? You need to realize that following a high protein diet isn't some quick fix that'll help you lose 20 pounds overnight. If you instead view this as your lifestyle, then there's no rush to be perfect from day one. Instead of beating yourself up, figure out how you can do better tomorrow by asking yourself questions like, where can I fit more protein in during the day? Can I add a few ounces of chicken with breakfast? Because that adds 26 grams of protein to start my day. Or what if I had 5 ounces of turkey on my sandwich instead of only 3? Because that easily adds 14 grams of protein to lunch with very little thought. And if I trade out my bag of chips for some Greek yogurt, that's another 17 grams of protein that I didn't really put much thought into. So you make these swaps and see how the next day goes. And if you only hit 100 grams the next day, that is great, because even if it's not your ultimate goal, hitting 100 grams is way better than staying stuck at 46. Instead of rushing into some plan with overwhelming guilt because you couldn't stick with it, now you're taking your time to figure out how to get closer every day with small habit changes. And maybe these changes seems like it's gonna take forever to hit your goal. But I promise you'll get there much faster than constantly starting from scratch whenever you jump into another quick fix plan where you have to rush the process. Of course, that's only if you're not also making mistake number 3. And this is a big one, especially since nearly every fitness channel out there is telling you to make this mistake. Remember all of those clothes you ordered but can't do anything with because they're too small? You decided to keep them because since you're on a diet, you'll eventually fit into them. So you throw them into the washer while waiting patiently for the day you can squeeze into them without so much of the squeezing part. But when you pull them out, the tops shrink even more, because even though you read the label, you didn't pay attention to the rest. So even though you didn't put much thought into what rayon really means, once you Googled it, you found out that rayon is known to shrink another 2.5 inches after drying. When you assume all fabrics are created equal, so you just throw them in the washer with the rest of your clothes, you don't always get the same results. And the same thing goes with protein, because all protein isn't created equal. Protein that you get from highly processed powders, shakes, and bars, even though those might seem like better choices than something like a candy bar, many of them actually aren't that much better. Since your body searches for nutrients from whole foods before it stops sending hunger signals, it's more difficult to get results when you rely on these kind of foods to hit your protein goals. Because even though foods labeled as high protein can help get you closer to your goal, that means nothing if you overeat the rest of the day, because having this leaves you ravenously hungry. And as if the first 3 mistakes aren't bad enough, if you're making the last mistake, you could be sabotaging your current diet while also destroying any chance you have of keeping the weight off. We all understand that fashion trends change as we age. Obviously, not everyone agrees, but for the most part, most 65-year-old women don't dress like this. On the flip side, a whole lot of 65-year-old women eat like this. And while maybe these women feel satisfied after eating, this isn't helping them keep their slim figure. Even these 80-something-year-olds got it right when they asked, "Where's the beef?" Not only do you need more protein as you get older, which far too many women get wrong, but you also need more protein whenever weight loss is your goal. As women who want to lose weight, who also need to think about getting older, we face a protein double whammy. Because even though you do need to eat less calories in order to get your scale to budge, you gotta figure out how to eat less while also keeping protein high. One thing aging women and women who want to lose weight have in common is they need to do everything possible to hold on to lean muscle. Whenever you follow a diet that's not high enough in protein, you're sending the signal to your body to pare down muscle. And it does this since muscle is a calorically expensive tissue to keep around. Whenever you're on a diet, you don't have a lot of calories to spare. So if you cut protein while cutting calories, then you won't have enough protein to hold on to that muscle. Not eating enough protein during your diet is the same thing as saying, "Here, bargain clothing store, take my $300 in exchange for kid-sized clothing that I'll never wear." Except in this case, you're saying, "Here, diet gods, take my muscle that is way more efficient at revving up my metabolism than this fat that I'd much rather get rid of." Because while it's true that your scale will go down just by dropping calories, if you don't eat enough protein, you can lose just as much muscle as fat. And in some cases, you can even end up fatter even if you weigh less. What? How? What? Let's keep this simple and pretend that you started your diet at 150 pounds with 30% body fat. If you drop 10 pounds, but you don't pay attention to protein, so all 10 pounds comes from muscle, then your body fat percentage shot up from 30 to 32%. So even though you dropped 10 pounds, you actually got fatter. But eating more protein isn't the only part of this muscle loss equation that you need to pay attention to. Because you can eat protein all day, every day, but you still won't hold on to the muscle that you so desperately need if you don't watch this video next. If you do this the right way, what you learn can help snowball your fat loss results to a place where you go from struggling to lose weight with a low-calorie diet to living in the body of your dreams while eating more and exercising less.